at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I'm a Master in Public Health and RD, which is a registered dietitian candidate. I've been doing a lot of, I'd like to share with you guys a little bit of the stuff that I've learned. But I just did want to remind everyone that what I'll be talking about today is just general nutrition information based on my research, and it's not a substitute for any medical advice that you've been given by a licensed professional. So first, I'd like to give you guys a little pop quiz. It's going to be real easy. Okay, so out of all of these foods, what do you think might be the healthiest? And you guys can just chat. Soy milk, yogurt,
Diet Coke.
Well, all of these foods are promoted as being healthy for us because they're low calorie, low fat, designed for weight loss. But the truth is that none of them are healthy for us. And I'm going to explain to you why. So here's a quick example of what healthy food should look like. This is pretty much, the basis of what a healthy diet should consist of is real food with real ingredients. So what exactly happens to food? So agriculture has been around for about 10,000 years, whereas human history has spanned over 200,000 as a species, Homo sapiens. Before agriculture, humans got most of their food from hunting and gathering, and our bodies have not been designed to eat things that wouldn't be attainable in this way. So many of our modern food products have only existed for the past 100 years or so, and maybe even just the last 10 years. So what are humans meant to be eating? This is the real question, because a lot of stuff that we're eating today is not foods that would be naturally found in the human diet. So to determine what humans are meant to be eating, we need to look at the evidence of the diets that humans thrive on. Dr. Weston Price was a dentist in the 1940s who traveled around the world and studied non-Western cultures and their traditional diets. He found that the cultures living off their traditional food staples were very healthy, had little tooth decay, lower prevalence of chronic disease or infectious disease even, and they had no signs of heart disease. And those cultures who had switched to the Western foods like white flour, skim milk, sugar, and all that, they had terrible tooth decay and really bad illnesses, a lot of tuberculosis, arthritis, lots of things happened in a very short amount of time when these foods were introduced. So these are some pictures that Dr. Price took. They're examples of the photographs of healthy natives that he studied that had traditional diets. And you can notice their broad faces, their straight white teeth. Obviously they don't have dentistry in third world primitive cultures. So the fact that they have teeth like this is pretty astounding. And this is how humans are supposed to look when they're healthy, right? So they're supposed to be well-nourished and strong. So these are examples of the indigenous cultures, pretty much the first generation that was introduced to Western food. And you can see how their teeth have gotten really crooked and crowded. They have a lot of cavities, their faces have gotten more narrow, and their jawlines are very difficult. And all of this happened within 1 or 2 generations of these foods being introduced, which is pretty crazy because you would think it would take longer. And another interesting thing that Dr. Price discovered was that there's a huge range of diets that humans can thrive on. So the Inuit, for example, eat a high-fat, high-animal product, almost no plants or vegetables, and yet they still have excellent health, and they have really great cardiovascular health as well. So the Inuit paradox reminds us that there's no such thing as an essential food, just essential nutrients. And this is important to remember when designing your optimal diet. So where did our ancestors get the protein from? As you can see from the pictures here, different animals that could be hunted or caught, such as large herbivores like elk, bison. Birds didn't make up a huge part, but they could catch birds once in a while. Small mammals like rabbits or other rodents were often eaten, and a lot of coastal cultures rely really heavily on fish and seafood. And then for plants, our ancestors varied a lot in their plant consumption, but the plants that they did eat really consisted of green, non-starchy vegetables, starchy tubers such as sweet potatoes. Seeds and nuts were eaten when they're in season, so sporadically along the year, and fruit also depending on the location. So if they're in a tropical location, probably have a more fruit-heavy diet. Someone like the Inuit would probably never have a piece of fruit in their entire life. So what's really important also to remember is not just what our ancestors ate, but what they didn't eat. And these are the 4 main types of foods that our ancestors never ate. So we can see that there's grains, which includes whole grains or processed grains, vegetable and seed oils, That's your canola oil, your soybean oil, corn oil. Sugar or artificial sweeteners, so besides just table sugar, we also have Splenda. I don't remember the names of them all because there were so many, Sweet and Low, NutraSweet. So these things did not exist when our ancestors were evolving. And also, I put dairy up there. Pasteurized low-fat dairy, I'll talk about that in a few minutes, is another food that our ancestors have not been eating, or had not been eating in the past. So we're told whole grains are healthy for us, right? Everyone always hears, you gotta get your whole grains, 6 to 11 servings a day, make half your grains whole. There's a lot of messages out there telling us to eat whole grains. And we hear it all the time from health professionals. So is this really true that we should be eating lots and lots of whole grains? And I'm gonna say the answer is no. Our government, I know this is an old picture of the food pyramid, but this is what I grew up on. Our government's been telling us for decades that we should be eating more whole grains. And it's recommended by the USDA to consume from 6 to 11 servings per day. And as you can see, the whole old food pyramid is based on grains as the foundation. So are we getting healthier from this advice? Not really. There's a lot of problems with grains that I'm going to talk briefly about. Grains are made up largely of carbohydrates, and carbohydrates are broken down into the body, broken down by the body into glucose, which is a type of sugar. Now, glucose in our blood causes insulin to be released, and insulin is a hormone that allows the cells to open up and take the glucose in and either use it for energy or store it as fat if it needs to. And it can also help get protein and other nutrients into the cell. So insulin is very important to be working properly in your body. And so if these excess calories can't be used as energy, then insulin will allow them to be stored as fat for later use of energy. And unfortunately, excess glucose consumption can lead to something called insulin resistance. Now, I'm going to show you, I don't know if you all have seen this. I know Arnell always talks about fathead as a really good thing to see. Yeah, and I'm just going to show you a quick clip. This is going to explain insulin resistance.
Most of us think we only put fat in our fat cells when we eat too much. But as Gary Taubes explains in Good Calories, Bad Calories, your fat cells are like rechargeable fuel cells. Every time you eat, you store some fat. In between meals, fat comes out of your fat cells to provide the fuel for your muscles and organs. If you're naturally thin, it's because you have efficient fat cells. Fat goes in quickly and it comes out easily. Your body doesn't need much fat because the little bit of fat you do have is a reliable source of fuel. If you're predisposed to be fat, it's because you have greedy fat cells. When you eat, you tend to store calories as fat instead of burning them. And when your other tissues need those calories, the fat comes out slowly if it comes out at all.
What are they doing? Did one of you guys forget to pay the food bill? Are you going to eat all that?
The end user of food that we eat are our individual cells. And it doesn't matter if it goes in our mouth. If it doesn't get to those cells, we starve. We starve at the cellular level.
And so you do exactly what your body is telling you to do.
Come on, eat something, steak, wake up.
You eat more. In other words, you're not getting fat because you're eating more. You're eating more because you're getting fat. Most of us weren't born with greedy fat cells, but we can certainly make them that way. When you eat too many carbohydrates, you raise your blood sugar. Since high blood sugar is toxic, your body releases insulin to bring it down. But your body can only burn a little bit of sugar at a time. So what happens to the rest of it?
Your storage sites for carbohydrate are limited, and we've got unlimited storage places for fat. So the body ends up just converting the carbohydrate to fat.
And after bringing down your blood sugar, insulin does its other job. It tells your body to store fat. When you have a healthy metabolism, it only takes a little bit of insulin to bring your blood sugar down, and then everything goes back to normal. But over time, that can change.
The cells can become resistant to the effects of insulin. In essence, when that happens, the insulin's talking, but the cells should start listening. And so they don't get the message from insulin, so they don't do what they're supposed to do.
Hello? Stop hitting me. I'm not hitting you. Stop hitting me. I'm not hitting you.
And so your body does what it has to do. It starts producing more insulin.
You finally reach the point to where your insulin's high just to keep your sugar normal, even if you're not eating any sugar. And then when that happens, then it's starting to drive stuff into the fat cell, and you've reached this point where all of a sudden, bam, you get fat.
Okay, so I hope that explained a little bit about insulin resistance to you. Again, we need to remember that insulin is really important because if we have excess blood sugar, it's a really toxic situation for our bodies. So we need to make sure that our blood sugar is not getting so high that it's going to be causing problems. So these are some consequences that can happen when you reach insulin resistance, such as stubborn body fat, type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, atherosclerosis, which is another word for heart disease. It's when your arteries get calcified and hard. And people with insulin resistance have a higher risk for a heart attack, stroke, and cancer. So here are some pictures of some common foods that many people eat on a regular basis. And the problem with these foods is that they send your blood sugar skyrocketing. High blood sugar, which is called hyperglycemia, is a dangerous state for your body to be in, as I just said. And your body works really quickly to lower this blood sugar by releasing insulin and storing the excess glucose as fat. Now, while your body's protecting you against the dangers of hyperglycemia, the unfortunate consequence is that you gain body fat. I'd rather have body fat than be dead, but there's only so much you want to put up with. So most of us don't actually need to eat a very low-carb diet. But currently, the dietary recommendations for Americans is to eat an average of 300 grams a day, which is really more than double our needs. Now, a typical slice of bread has about 15 grams of carbs in it, which might not sound much, but if you're eating 2 slices of toast for breakfast, a big thing of orange juice, bread on your sandwich for lunch, fruit for a snack, and then pasta for dinner, it really adds up to a lot of carbohydrates. And ideally, we should aim for around 100 to 150 grams per day. Less if you're trying to lose fat, and more if you're an athlete and you do running, lots of CrossFit and all that, or if you're trying to gain weight. So grains also have a compound called anti-nutrients in them, which are basically these things that negatively affect our health. They're the opposite of nutrients. There's many anti-nutrients in grains, such as lectin, which can bind to insulin receptors, and also the intestinal lining of our gut. Gluten, which can cause gut inflammation, and I'm sure you all have heard of gluten-free diets and all that. Excess gluten can lead to leaky gut syndrome, gluten intolerance, and then also can end up causing autoimmune conditions. Phytates in the fiber of whole grains, those can bind to minerals such as iron, calcium, magnesium, zinc, and they can even bind to proteins in your diet. So even though these grains might have nutrients in them, they're actually really kind of making it not only difficult for your gut to absorb these nutrients, but also binding to them, so your gut just sends them right out of your body. So I just wanted to sum up what we've learned about grains today. They're not a necessary component of a diet, and we do not need grains to live. So at best, they're basically empty carbohydrate calories that are really not providing you much nutrition at all, and are just adding to your carbohydrate load. And at worst, they can cause some really serious illnesses. And there are many other ways to get your daily carbohydrates in other than grains, such as sweet potatoes, some types of fruit, and if you tolerate white potatoes, well, those are another good source. And I would say at the end of the day, just, there's no reason to eat grains, and you should really just try to avoid them. All right, so why is dairy on this list? And I know we all think we need dairy for calcium, right? Well, there's a lot of problems with the dairy that lines the stores, the shelves of the grocery stores. The processing that dairy goes through causes major changes to the structure of the fat and proteins in the dairy, and it makes it really hard for your body to digest, hence things like lactose intolerance, just problems digesting milk. And the beneficial fats and microorganisms found in dairy before it's pasteurized and homogenized, they're all destroyed in this process. So everything that you might be getting from milk normally has been pretty much eliminated by the processing. And that includes fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, and K2. So if you're going to drink fat-free milk especially, you really need fat to absorb things like vitamins A and D because they're fat-soluble. So even if your fat-free milk is supplemented with vitamins A and D, you're not really going to be absorbing much of it. And low-fat milk is really insulinogenic, so it causes your body to produce lots of insulin. It is also possibly linked to cancer development, and it also promotes allergies and asthma, especially in children. So if you are going to consume dairy, I'm not anti-dairy, I just don't like what we are selling on the stores in the grocery store. If you're going to go with dairy, make sure it's organic, try to go full fat, and I know raw milk's not legal in New Jersey, but you know, if you do find a way to get raw milk, it's really the best way to drink it.
You mean straight from the cow?
Yeah, well, basically.
No, go to the milk tank. Don't go under the cow.
Milk your own cow if you get one. So, alright, so we all know that sugar is bad for us, but what other problems can sugar cause? Well, sugar is really inflammatory in the body and it increases our risk for obesity and chronic diseases. It promotes tooth decay, and it also really feeds bacterial infections in our body. So if you're sick and you're eating a lot of sugar, you're really not going to get over it very fast because you're pumping yourself full of bacteria food, basically. Plus, not to mention, all sweeteners actually contribute to weight gain. This is fairly new information that we have. Even if the sugar does not have, or the sweetener doesn't have calories in it, so like your Splenda, your aspartame, all that, it actually still stimulates a response in insulin because of the sweet flavor. So anything you're eating at the time that has calories is actually going to end up being stored as fat because your body's releasing insulin in response to that non-caloric sweetener. And artificial sweeteners are also linked with type 2 diabetes, and our bodies basically treat these things as toxins, so they're really possibly even neurotoxins that we might be ingesting on a regular basis. So calorie-free sweeteners are not a free food. You can't just eat them and there's no effect on your body the way a lot of people have been led to believe by the sugar companies. But they can contribute to weight gain just as much as real sugar. So we can always find alternatives that are not going to cause these problems. And some of the sweet alternatives are things like raw honey, molasses, real maple syrup, and green leaf stevia. These are all natural options that, you know, they have things besides just sugar. They have nutrients in them. Molasses has a lot of minerals in it, which is, it's a great way to sweeten things if you want to get a little extra minerals in your diet. And these are natural sweeteners that can be used in moderation. I mean, you don't want to go crazy, but they're still, you know, they're still sugar. But these are definitely better alternatives than white sugar or artificial sweeteners. And you might even find that reducing sugar in your diet actually lessens your preference for sweet foods. I mean, the less you eat it, the less you crave it. So, okay, so I have another short video for you guys. Has anyone ever seen the way canola oil is produced? Raise your hand if you've ever seen vegetable oil production. Okay, well this is a I guess we can call it a scientific video. It's like an original video showing how canola oil is made. And I really like this video because a lot of times we forget how unnatural a lot of the stuff we're eating is, even if it is coming from a plant. So,
Canola oil is a commonly used type of cooking oil.
I'm going to say this guy doesn't know what he's
derived
talking
from the
about.
seed of the canola plant, which North American farmers have been growing for about 30 years now. The plant blooms in the summer, producing bright yellow flowers. Farmers harvest the seeds from pods, which form after those flowers die off. Canola oil is one of the healthiest cooking oils. Compared to olive, sunflower, and soybean oils, it has the lowest level of saturated fat, 7%. It also contains more healthy omega-3 fatty acids and is high in monounsaturated fat, which lowers cholesterol. When the canola seed arrives at the processing factory, it contains foreign material, mostly plant pieces. So the first step is to clean the seed in a vibrating sieve. The seeds, smaller than the openings in the sieve's mesh, fall through to a conveyor below. The foreign material remains on top. A conveyor moves it to a storage bin, where it's collected for sale as cattle feed. The seeds pass by a magnet. It removes any metal that may have fallen in during the journey from field to factory. Next, the seeds enter a roller mill. They pass between two steel rollers, which crush them into thin flakes. A conveyor then feeds the flakes into a screw press. It has a large revolving screw-shaped shaft enclosed within a slotted cage. As the shaft turns, its threads squeeze the flakes with high pressure, forcing out the oil, which then drains out through the slots. 42% of canola seed is oil. This screw press extracts nearly 3/4 of that. The remainder is still trapped in the pressed flakes, now referred to as canola cake.
Now this is where it gets
The
really
cake
good.
exits the other end of the press and moves on to a second extraction. This one, a 70-minute wash with a solvent. This chemical extraction process removes all but a trace of oil.
So now they're washing it with a chemical solvent.
The factory then grinds the cake into protein-rich meal that it sells as animal feed. The extracted oil, stored in large tanks, now enters the refining phase. First, they wash the oil for 20 minutes with sodium hydroxide. During this wash cycle, they spin the oil at high speed so that the centrifugal force separates the natural impurities, which the factory later sells to soap manufacturers. After this cleaning process, the canola oil is visibly clear. However, it still contains natural waxes, which makes it look cloudy. So the next step is to cool the oil to 41 degrees Fahrenheit. This thickens those waxes so that they can be filtered out. The waxes don't go to waste either. The factory uses them to produce vegetable shortening.
So that's when they talk about trans fat and like Crisco, that's what that is. That's Crisco.
In the factory's lab, technicians recreate production on a small scale to ensure performance and quality. Meanwhile, back in the factory, after washing and filtering the oil, they bleach it to lighten the color. Then use a steam injection heating process to remove the canola odor. The oil is now fully refined and ready for bottling.
Hey, yummy. I'm sure y'all are going to go home and drench your salads in canola oil just like that in the video. Alright, so hopefully that gives you a little bit better of a, understanding about why I tell people not to eat vegetable oils. Yeah, olive oil is actually pressed a different way than canola oil is.
So olive oil is your best oil to use? Or?
No, we'll cover that. So now that you've seen the way canola oil is made, so why are these highly processed industrial oils so bad for us? Well, excess omega-6 fatty acids in the diet can actually cause a variety of problems, mainly due to the inflammation that they cause in your body. So they increase our risk of cancer, they contribute to atherosclerosis, which again is the hardening of the arteries. They deplete our body of antioxidants, which are used to actually combat the oxidation that happens when you put these oils in your body. And they often contain chemical residues from the growth and the refinement process. So these are just a few of the reasons why polyunsaturated vegetable oils are really not good for you and should be excluded from your diet for optimal health. And these are just examples of the different types of industrial vegetable and seed oils. I don't know if any of you eat any of these. I know you guys were mentioning Smart Balance, that people say, oh, Smart Balance, it's better for you. Well, as you can see from what I just showed you, it's not. So all of these are things that if you want to have the best health that you can, you really should just get rid of them and never eat them again, if at all possible. So, and to answer your question about what kind of fats we should be eating, here's a list of healthy and also delicious fats that you can be using on a regular basis. Now, my favorites include coconut oil because of its thermogenic properties, which means it actually boosts your metabolism when you eat it. It consists of medium-chain fatty acids, and they're a great source of energy. And they're really the ideal. Coconut oil is the ideal fat to use if you're trying to lose weight. And these fats, and particularly butter fat, also contain a great amount of nutrients such as fat-soluble vitamins that I'll discuss in a minute. So this is the list of the kind of fats we should be cooking with. Like I said, coconut oil is really great. Extra virgin olive oil, what you were saying about that, I do like olive oil, but I don't cook with it because as a vegetable oil, it gets oxidized really quickly by high heat. So best to be used in cold functions like salad dressings, things like that. And I meant to take fish oil off because that's actually, you shouldn't be eating too much fish oil because it can cause some issues, but fish oil is in small doses, like fatty fish basically, is good for you. So, aren't saturated fats bad for us? I mean, this is what we've been being told for, as long as I've been alive, it's been what we've been hearing. But how can something that beautiful be bad for us? Well, to tell you the truth, science has never actually established a direct link between saturated fat consumption and heart disease. They've established a link between saturated fat and raised cholesterol, and they've established a link between high cholesterol levels and heart disease, but there's never actually been a direct causation. So the Inuit paradox that I mentioned before, where they eat a lot of high-fat, high-animal fat diet, it just demonstrates how a high-fat diet, which is full of saturated fat, can be healthy and support cardiovascular health. And as we learned before, it's generally excess carbohydrates that make us fat. Coconut oil, as I explained before, has medium-chain fatty acids that actually boost your metabolism. And high-fat diets are shown to actually cause people to make spontaneous reductions in the amount of calories they take in. So that means if you're eating a high-fat diet, you'll end up eating less than you'd be eating on a low-fat diet just based on your satiety levels. And that can aid in weight loss if that's one of your goals. And finally, saturated fats actually raise your HDL cholesterol, which is a really important cholesterol molecule to be having in your body. It's a lipoprotein actually, but it's protective against heart disease. So the higher your HDL, the more protected you are against heart disease. And we actually really need saturated fats in all of our cells. About 50% of our cell membrane is made up of saturated fat. And it's also our preferred source of energy. So when you store excess energy as fat, that's because your body wants to have that energy source of saturated fat. So if you're on a low-fat diet, your body really actually finds ways to make you actually be having a high-fat diet because it'll turn what you're eating into saturated fat. So another important thing to remember is that animal fats, which are usually high in saturated fat, contain many fat-soluble vitamins that further protect against heart disease, among other chronic diseases. And these fat-soluble vitamins are extremely important to our health. These vitamins have been shown to greatly enhance weight loss. They've been shown to help with muscle building, and they prevent a range of chronic diseases. And if you're trying to lose weight or build muscle, which I feel like most of us usually are, I know I'm always trying to do one of those two things, it's really important that you eat enough of these fat-soluble vitamins. And the three major ones missing from our diets are vitamins D, A, and K2. So we've all heard about vitamin D, sunshine vitamin, you know, there's a lot of news about vitamin D, how you need it and all that, and you should be supplementing with vitamin D. Well, vitamin D is produced mainly when our bodies are exposed to sunlight. It's the best source of vitamin D for you. The UV radiation actually converts cholesterol in your blood into vitamin D, so if you have a low cholesterol level in your blood, you might not be getting enough vitamin D, even if you're outside all the time. And other great sources of vitamin D, if it's winter outside and you can't really get outside, there's things like fatty fish, organ meats, which I'll talk about later. Vitamin D is really important for strong bones and teeth. It is linked to greater fat loss when you're trying to lose weight, and it is likely to protect us against cancer and other infectious disease. It'll boost your immune system so you won't get sick as often. It's really a very important vitamin, as we've all heard. Vitamin A is another essential fat-soluble vitamin that Americans don't get enough of. Vitamin A helps with healthy cell turnover, so skin health, hair health, nails, all of that is really, it's vital to have vitamin A. I don't know if you guys have heard of Retin-A as a treatment for acne. Well, that's really just a high dose of vitamin A, actually. And the type of vitamin A that's active in our bodies is called retinol, which is the animal form of vitamin A. So we've all heard about beta-carotene, which is found in plants, and people call that vitamin A. Well, that's actually not the usable form in our bodies, and your body has to process that form to make it into usable vitamin A as retinol. So we are not very efficient at this process, so if you're trying to get your vitamin A from plants, it's really a lot more challenging than if you're getting it from food. And vitamin A also works synergistically with vitamin D to help calcify your bones, and it's also important for promoting muscle growth. So it's important to have both of these in concert.
Vitamin A?
Pretty much the same stuff that has vitamin D. I'm going to talk a little bit more about organ meats. I know it's a little bit scary, but organ meats especially. Also, I'm trying to think of some other things. I mean, you can get the beta-carotene, but vitamin A is found in like egg yolks, a lot of like animal meats and stuff. So, but organ meats are really the ultimate way to get all you need. Okay, so vitamin K2 is the last one I'm going to mention. It's a very highly ignored nutrient by the mainstream media. We've heard about vitamin K as being like the clotting vitamin, but it's actually vitamin K2 that's more important. It's the active form of vitamin K found mainly in animal products. Our body is inefficient at converting vitamin K1 from the green plants into vitamin K2, which is why we need to eat things like grass-fed beef and grass-fed butter, because cows are much more efficient at converting K1 into K2. And the best way to get the K2 in our diets is from grass-fed animal products, including butter. As I said, liver, again, another great superfood. Dairy in general from pastured animals, grass-fed beef, that kind of thing. Vitamin K2 is also essential for vitamins A and D to work together properly. So vitamins A and D and K all work together to not only calcify your bones and your teeth, but also to remove calcium from your arteries, which is what atherosclerosis is calcification. So these three working together are actually very protective against heart disease. And without vitamin K2, or vitamins A and D can't do their jobs properly. So if you're taking supplements for vitamins A and D and you're not taking K2, that can actually cause some problems. And just a brief set of tips when you're choosing your animal products. If you can afford to buy organic and grass-fed, I really think it's one of the most important ways to improve your diet. It's a really good investment. If you're going to be spending any money on your food, it really should be going towards this kind of animal product. As I said before, animal fats have a wide range of micronutrients, and the type of micronutrients found in grass-fed animals is way higher than that of the conventional corn-fed, canola cake-fed animals. They have nutrients such as choline, conjugated linoleic acid, which helps with weight loss, omega-3s, which help with reducing inflammation and help with brain function, lots of minerals such as iron, zinc, and copper. And this is just a really small sample of the many nutrients that animal foods provide, and properly raised animals, or even wild sources if you can get it, are basically the ideal for maximizing the nutritional value of animal foods. Okay, so the 10 steps for optimal health. After studying the diet and the lifestyle of our ancestors, we know that there is a great deal of information that can help us structure our lives in a way that's more natural and more health promoting for our bodies. So this is what I think are the 10 steps to optimal health. So I already mentioned that there's a huge importance of animal products in the diet. Animal proteins are much more easily digested and utilized than plant proteins. They contain all 9 essential amino acids and also a large quantity of the 20 amino acids that our bodies need to function properly. You can get a great deal of other micronutrients from animals. B12 is only found in animal sources, so if you're eating a vegan diet, you'll likely be B12 deficient. Zinc and iron are really only well absorbed from animal foods, and they're poorly absorbed from plant sources. So this is one of the best ways to get your protein and also get a huge hit of micronutrients. Okay, number 2, eat a large quantity and wide variety of plant matter. I'm sure a lot of people think, caveman diet obviously sounds like it's really high on the meat, which I guess from my number 1 it would sound that way, but actually I would say that the bulk of your volume in your diet should come from non-starchy vegetables. I even eat vegetables at breakfast now that I've been really hardcore paleo, and I've never done that before in my life, and it's just like, it's kind of incredible to be cooking up kale for breakfast, So starchy vegetables like sweet potatoes and fruit are really good ways to get complex carbohydrates that can help fuel your workout, and they don't have the negative effects of the anti-nutrients found in the grains and the legumes. So green vegetables are a great source of potassium, magnesium, folate, and other important micronutrients as well. And so the more variety of plant matter you include in your diet, the better. And organic sources are best if you can afford them, but like I said, if you're on a tight budget, the animal sources are really more important to be worried about with quality. Okay. So, number 3 is to drink water. And we all know that water is essential for our health, but a lot of us are still not getting enough water in our daily diet. Symptoms of chronic dehydration include fatigue, skin problems, joint discomfort, poor digestion, and being dehydrated can actually really stall weight loss and impair your athletic performance. So make sure you always stick to pure water and skip the sports drinks and the vitamin waters and all that, because as we talked about before, artificial sweeteners and real sweeteners are not things that you want to be including in your diet. They're also full of synthetic vitamins, which can actually block your body from absorbing the real nutrients from your food, and they have a lot of colors and flavors, and they're just not something that is necessary, and definitely weren't in the ancestral diet, so.
I have a question.
Sure.
What would you consider with all the sparkling water?
Like, is it?
Like, let's say Poland sparkling. Because for me, that's like a huge substitution.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you can, I would try to go with plain sparkling water, and then if you like the flavor, maybe add lemon, or like, I like to put like frozen berries in my water sometimes as like a little kick, but, and you don't have to go crazy, but in terms of if you're gonna go work out really hard and then walk out and have a big, huge Gatorade, it's kind of like, that's more of the sports drinks that would be causing problems. Sparkling water is pretty much benign as long as it doesn't have sugar or sweeteners added. So, good question.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so get adequate rest. This is a really important one that I think a lot of times people miss out on. Adequate rest is essential for health, and this means more than just ensuring you get your 8 hours a night. It also means taking time off from intense workouts so your body can recover. You need to listen to your body if you feel fatigued or in pain. It's usually a sign that you're pushing yourself too hard. And lack of sleep and or over-exercising can actually make your body, and make it really hard for your body to lose fat because it causes you to raise cortisol, which is a hormone that causes the body to store fat because it's stressed, and particularly around the belly. So if you're really tired or if you're just exhausted, I would say that you're actually better taking a nap. No offense, Arnell, but you're better taking a nap than coming in for a really hard workout, forcing yourself muscle through. If you're exhausted or you're in pain, it's really better for you to just take the day off and just rest and recover and allow your body to get ready to really be, ready for the next time you feel comfortable working out. And chronic stress without enough rest and relaxation will make it really hard to lose fat and feel optimally healthy. And you want to make sure you're sleeping in a cool, dark room and try to minimize distractions such as noise or electronics or excess lighting and things like that, because your body is surprisingly sensitive to these kind of things. Okay, number 5, lift heavy. So since you all come to Fit Boot Camp, I know you're already doing a lot of heavy lifting, which is great. Lifting heavy weights not only helps build lean and strong muscles, but it can actually really help with fat loss. Lifting weights can be just as beneficial, if not more so, than cardio training for fat loss. And just be careful and give yourself, like I said, a day of rest after a really tough session. I know they have a good schedule here where it's on and off, but make sure you're not going out to the gym the next day after you do a big CrossFit workout and pushing yourself again, because you really need that time to let your body recover. Okay, number 6, run fast. So while chronic cardio exercise is not ideal for optimum health, there's a lot of health benefits to high-intensity interval training, such as sprinting, bike sprinting, doing the rowing machine. So short bursts of speed with rest intervals or low-impact intervals in between has actually been shown to promote fat burning and also boost your metabolic rate. And it also increases growth hormone circulation in your blood. So if you're trying to gain muscle mass, it's actually a really good way to do that as well. So sprinting short distances has been shown to be less stressful on your body than long chronic cardio. So if you want to go out for a run, I'd really say it's better to walk and then throw in some sprint intervals in your walk, and you'll get more benefits out of that. Okay, number 7, eat nutrient-dense foods. And I featured a grass-fed beef liver from Lawrenceville, New Jersey. We used to get our food from there when I lived down in Princeton. So what you eat is not just a sum of your macronutrient parts. So there's a lot of micronutrients in food that work together to support your body functions. So it's not just about protein, carbs, and fat. There's so many other things in food that really are important that we have in adequate amounts. And in order to optimize your metabolism and keep your energy high, you need more than just a specific level of these, protein, carbs, and fats. Micronutrients such as vitamins and minerals are more important, I think, than the macronutrient ratios for sustaining your health and supporting your physical activity. So being nutrient deficient is extremely stressful on your body, and your body will actually shut down non-vital functions in order to spare nutrients for your brain and your organ function. So it can really make you fatigued and all that if you don't have enough micronutrients. So if you want to be optimally healthy, I really think it's important to include many nutrient-dense foods. And I show liver here because it's really one of the most powerful superfoods on earth. I know it's not exactly chocolate cake or something as far as how it tastes, but it's a really great source of all the nutrients you would be possibly missing from your diet otherwise, and It was also a food that was traditionally consumed by bodybuilders back before the whole protein shake invention. So if you're looking to boost your muscle mass, it's a great food to include. Organ meats in general, it doesn't have to just be beef liver, chicken liver, you know, I'm not going to go through the organs of the animal, but they're very high in nutrient density, and if you can stomach them and you can find ways to cook them, it's a really great way to improve your health. Okay, number 8. Oh, sorry?
Doesn't liver usually have toxins in it then?
That's a good point, and when you're looking for liver, if you're brave enough to try to cook it, I really, again, suggest you go with the grass-fed option, organic grass-fed, local sources if you can. And it's actually really cheap because people don't really want to buy it, and people have a high demand for grass-fed muscle meats. There's a lot of grass-fed organ meats that are really inexpensive, a great way to add a lot of nutrient density to your diet. There's a lot of controversy about the liver being like a filter organ, but they're not really sure if the toxins actually end up staying in the liver if they just get passed through. And lots of traditional cultures have been eating organ products or meats for thousands of years. So, and when I mentioned Dr. Price before, he found a lot of people were eating organ meats, and they were the most healthy cultures that he found on the planet. So I can't say for sure that there's no toxins, but the fact that you get so many micronutrients that will actually help your body process any toxins that there might be, I think is worth the potential risk. That was a good question. Okay, so managing stress is number 8. So you might have a perfect diet and exercise routine dialed in, but if you don't have a handle on your stress levels, you will probably never reach your optimum wellness. Chronic stress raises cortisol, which, as I said before, leads to a buildup of body fat around your abdomen, and it can also cause inflammation in the body, and that can raise your risk for chronic disease, things like heart disease. So make sure, as part of your health protocol, you're including something that you find enjoyable that allows you to unwind. And just as important as your diet, it's just as important as your diet and your exercise routine. So things like deep breathing, meditation, yoga, any of these activities that you find relaxing will definitely help you with your wellness. All right, number 9, avoid toxins. So this should go without saying, but it's also,
I gave her the one.
that was my number 8, the toxins. It's another important factor to consider. So toxins can range from the obvious, such as alcohol and cigarettes. Not that alcohol is like evil, but excess alcohol. But there's a lot of not so obvious toxins, such as plastic containers with BPA, burnt food, chemical air fresheners. A glass of wine at night is fine, but going out and drinking like 10 drinks in a night, probably not so great of an idea. Toxins in the air, such as smoke and chemicals, or mold even in your house, can wreak havoc on your immune system. BPA in cans and plastic containers actually mimic sex hormones that can throw off your estrogen and progesterone balance. Burnt food contains carcinogenic compounds, and that increases your risk for cancer. So I don't want to freak you out. I know we can never avoid all toxins. I mean, you walk outside and there's car pollution. You're never going to be able to avoid it all. But if you can do your best to control the ones that you do have control over, it'll make a huge difference to your health. So quit smoking if not if you can. You should quit smoking. Do it. Moderate your drinking. Store food in glass containers, and throw away your Febreze. It's not that. All right, so last one, number 10, have fun. At the end of the day, there's no point of being healthy if you're just going to be stressed and unhappy. Taking time out to have pleasure and to socialize with family and all that is a really, really important component of your wellness. It helps you reduce stress, it improves your mood and your bond with others. And if your quest for perfect health is causing you to neglect your friends, your family, your hobbies, and your passions, it might be time to reevaluate your priorities. So while nutrition and fitness is really important, I still think it's really important to also live a life that you're enjoying and living your life to the fullest regardless of your current health status. And this might even be the part of the wellness puzzle that you're missing. All right, so the Real Food Pyramid, just to summarize, I'd like to show you this, which has been designed by my friend Diane from Balance Bites. As you can see, it's much different than the standard American food pyramid you're used to seeing. And I wanted to note that when Diane mentions lean meat, she's actually referring to the lower fat content of humanely raised grass-fed animals. So, you know, your organic grass-fed steak is going to actually have less fat in it than a corn-fed steak. And by basing your meals off of healthy animal foods, lots of vegetables, fruit, and nuts and seeds in moderation, you'll be eating a biologically appropriate diet. So I hope you all have learned something about ancestral nutrition today and can find a way to incorporate these principles into your daily life. So for more information, these are my gurus. I'm going to just show you a couple people that I read all the time, and I love them. So Robb Wolf is a research biochemist. He wrote The Paleo Solution, and he runs a blog and a podcast at robbwolf.com. His podcast is called The Paleo Solution. If any of you are science nerds like me, he's a great resource. He talks a lot about the biochemical basis of why we eat this way. And he talks about research and news stories, and it's really fabulous. All right, Chris Kresser. He's a licensed acupuncturist and integrative practitioner. He's known as the Healthy Skeptic, and his website is chriskresser.com. He has a podcast called Revolution Health Radio. I really love him. He's really well balanced, very holistic about not only getting your diet and your exercise in, but you know, things like getting out into nature and fostering relationships and getting enough sleep and things like that that are also really important pieces of the puzzle. All right, Mark Sisson. He's actually in his 50s, if you can believe it. He wrote the Primal Blueprint, which is a really great book. I really recommend it if you're looking for an introduction to the ancestral nutrition lifestyle. He also has a blog called marksdailyapple.com, which is another great resource. They talk a lot about different issues that are coming up in people's nutrition and news stories and all that. So, and he's not bad to look at. So. And then my last guru is Diane Sanfilippo, which she's the blogger at Balanced Bite that I mentioned made that the Real Food Pyramid. She has a really excellent podcast called Balanced Bite. You can download it on iTunes. And she and my friend Liz from a website called Cave Girl Eats basically answer questions about paleo diet, answer people's specific questions about things they're dealing with, and they make it in a really easy to understand, very laid back. It's a lot less technical than someone like Robb Wolf would be, so if you're really looking for a great way to introduce yourself and you have some time to listen to a podcast, I really highly recommend this. So, okay, thanks everyone for coming. If you want to learn more about the kind of stuff I write about and talk about nutrition, there's a whole wealth of information out there that I didn't have time to cover today. You can go to my blog at ancestralizeme.com, or you can like me on Facebook. It's Ancestralize Me. So again, thanks everyone for coming, and I hope you learned a lot.